On the first morning of the new year, when fireworks had barely faded from the cold sky and the world was busy making promises it might never keep, Daniel Carter woke up on a frozen park bench with his 8-year-old son, Noah, curled tightly against his chest, their breath forming small clouds in the winter air, and in that quiet moment, Daniel understood with painful clarity that he had reached the lowest point of his life, not because he was homeless or broke or exhausted, but because his child had learned to sleep without expecting warmth. Daniel had not always lived like this. Once, he had a modest apartment, a steady job at a local manufacturing company, and a wife named Emily whose laughter filled every corner of their home. But life had unraveled quickly and cruelly when Emily fell ill, and the medical bills stacked higher than his paychecks, and the company he worked for downsized, and grief took more from him than poverty ever could, leaving him a widower with a child to raise and a mountain of debt that swallowed every opportunity he tried to climb. By the time winter arrived, the apartment was gone, the car was repossessed, and Daniel found himself standing in a shelter line holding Noah's hand, promising things he wasn't sure he could ever deliver. That morning in the park, Noah stirred and looked up at his father with sleepy eyes and said, "Happy New Year, Dad. This year is going to be better, right?" And Daniel smiled even as his throat burned because he knew that if hope was a currency, his son was richer than any man alive. With nothing but a worn backpack, a few clothes, and a notebook Emily once gave him, Daniel made a silent vow that this year would not break them, even if it broke him. Days passed slowly, marked by cold meals from soup kitchens, nights spent in shelters when space allowed, and endless job rejections that came with polite smiles and quiet judgments once employers realized he had no permanent address. Yet every morning, Daniel woke Noah early, cleaned him up in public restrooms, and walked him to school, insisting that education was the one thing poverty could not steal if they guarded it fiercely. Daniel spent his days walking miles through the city, offering to do any work, shoveling snow, fixing fences, cleaning shops, earning just enough to buy food and sometimes a cheap motel room when Noah grew sick from the cold. One afternoon, while waiting in line outside a small cafe that offered free coffee to the homeless, Daniel noticed a handwritten sign taped to the window asking for help repairing a broken storage room shelf, and without hesitation, he stepped inside and offered his skills, explaining that he had once worked with tools every day. The cafe owner, an older man named Mr. Reynolds, studied Daniel carefully before agreeing, and as Daniel worked with quiet focus and surprising precision, Mr. Reynolds began asking questions, learning about the man behind the worn jacket and tired eyes. When the job was done, the shelf stood stronger than before, and Mr. Reynolds paid Daniel more than expected, but more importantly, he offered him occasional work fixing things around the cafe. That small opportunity became a lifeline, and Daniel treated it like gold, arriving early, working hard, and never complaining. Weeks later, Mr. Reynolds introduced Daniel to a friend who ran a small property management business, and Daniel began picking up maintenance jobs across the city, learning quickly, saving every dollar, and keeping careful notes in Emily's old notebook, writing down expenses, ideas, and goals like a man building a future on paper before reality caught up. Despite the exhaustion, Daniel spent every evening helping Noah with homework by the light of library lamps, teaching him lessons beyond school books, lessons about kindness, resilience, and dignity, reminding him that their situation did not define their worth. Spring arrived quietly, and with it, more work and slightly warmer nights, and Daniel managed to save enough to rent a tiny room in a shared house, a place with peeling paint and thin walls but a door they could lock and a bed they could call their own. Noah cried that first night, overwhelmed by relief, and Daniel held him, whispering that this was just the beginning. As months passed, Daniel's reputation grew. Property owners began requesting him by name because he worked honestly, charged fairly, and fixed problems properly instead of quickly. He learned to negotiate, to price his labor accurately, and to reinvest in better tools instead of temporary comforts, always thinking long-term, always thinking of Noah. One evening, while repairing a neglected duplex, Daniel discovered severe structural issues that the owner had overlooked, and instead of ignoring them, he documented everything carefully and explained the risks and potential value if the property were properly restored. Impressed by Daniel's insight and integrity, the owner offered him a small partnership deal. Daniel would manage and renovate the property in exchange for a percentage of future profits. It was a risk, but Daniel accepted, pouring his time and energy into transforming the building, working late nights while Noah slept nearby with his schoolbooks stacked neatly at his side. The renovation succeeded beyond expectations, attracting reliable tenants and increasing the property's value, and for the first time in years, Daniel saw not just survival, but growth. With his share of the profits, he reinvested again, partnering on another project, then another, each time learning more about real estate, budgeting, and management, guided by the same principles that had kept him alive during his hardest days: honesty, patience, and relentless effort. Summer came, and Daniel officially registered a small business, something he never imagined doing while sleeping on a park bench months earlier, and though the paperwork felt intimidating, he approached it with the same determination he had shown in every repair job. Noah watched his father transform, not into someone richer in money alone, but into a man confident in his ability to face the world, and that transformation shaped the boy's own understanding of strength. When school resumed in the fall, Daniel moved Noah into a better neighborhood closer to a good school, and while their apartment was still modest, it was filled with laughter, shared meals, and the quiet hum of stability. Opportunities continued to grow as Daniel's business expanded. Investors noticed his work ethic, his track record, and his unique ability to see value where others saw decay, and soon he was overseeing multiple renovation projects across the city. Yet despite the increasing income, Daniel lived simply, remembering every cold night, every hungry morning, and every moment Noah had trusted him without question. As winter approached again, marking nearly a full year since that first night in the park, Daniel received an unexpected offer from a development firm that wanted to buy out several of the properties he had helped restore, offering a sum that made his hands tremble as he read the contract. After careful consideration, Daniel agreed, and on the final day of the year, he stood in a quiet office signing papers that officially made him a millionaire, a word that felt unreal compared to the memory of cardboard mats and soup lines. That evening, Daniel took Noah back to the same park where their year had begun, now decorated with lights and filled with families celebrating the upcoming new year, and they sat on a bench together, not because they had nowhere else to go, but because Daniel wanted his son to remember where they had started. "We made it, Dad," Noah said softly, and Daniel smiled, correcting him gently, "No, son, we built it." As fireworks lit up the sky once more, Daniel reflected on the year that had changed everything, understanding that wealth was not just the number in his bank account, but the strength forged through hardship, the lessons passed to his child, and the unbreakable bond formed when a father refused to give up, proving that even from homelessness, a new year can grow into a life beyond imagination when hope is protected, work is honest, and love is unshakable.